As a dungeon master, we have all the time in the world. We never have to worry about, sessions being limited or have people having to go and do things. We get to start playing in the beginning of the day and we play to the very end. That's a dream world that I used to be part of a long time ago. I remember the 12-hour sessions. Now, life is busy. So how do we manage that? How do we manage pace and timing when it comes to our Dungeons & Dragons game? Well, let's talk about it. When it comes to managing pace and timing of a game, combat always gets in the way. So let's talk about how to manage combat. Number one, don't be afraid to push combat along. Now I'm going to do a whole session on this, but get in there. Guys, what do you want to do? What are you going to do? Come on, they're moving along. Make a character move, right? Someone's saying that, well, this goblin moves forward 5. Well, hold on, it's not their turn. I know, you're taking too long. You can do that. You want to know why you can do that? Because you're the dungeon master. By you making things seem more intense. Listen, you're running out of time. You've got to go. Well, what's he going to do? You don't know what he's going to do. This is your turn, your action. Speak faster, move faster, get the intensity up. I like to even put music on that helps raise the intensity. Remember, there's nothing wrong with you pushing combat along, making your characters act. They're going to make rash decisions. When the game no longer becomes tactical and becomes about role-playing combat and the characters are more concerned with what their character would do within combat, they'll make decisions quickly. When it's a tactical game, that's when combat really comes down. Allow for combat to be a role-playing part of the game. Give it a shot. Food for thought. Another great way to push combat or push NPC dialogue along, have you ever had this happen to you as a dungeon master? You're going, you say this as an NPC and the players look at each other and start having a conversation. Are you guys saying that to one another, or are you just standing there in silence as this NPC is looking at you, right? You guys don't get to have conversations around an NPC. The NPC can hear those kinds of things. Who's talking right now? You're engaged in conversation. You don't get to talk to each other unless you want the NPC to hear it. By doing that, you will move NPC negotiations, dialogues, conversations, engagements along so much faster. Because remind the players, hey, you're standing in front of someone right now. Now, I know it's a game. Some players and some tables do not like this rule. I love it. If you're going to stand in front of the NPC, if you're going to negotiate, if you're going to plan before you walk into the room. That's my take on it, but I love doing this because it makes the players be engaged with the NPC as opposed to trying to strategize while the NPC is standing there. Food for thought. Would you use this one, or how would you tweak it? Put time limits on things. If you want to move the game forward, don't allow your players to spend the next 30 minutes talking about how they're going to catch someone that's currently in midair falling off of a cliff. Put a time limit on it. Me, I have a 10-second timer. I love my 10-second timer. Flip, that's how long you get to act. You will be amazed at how you can do that. Now, I set this expectation up beforehand, or I tell people, hey, we are taking so long on engagements, I'm going to bring my timer in, which is a 10-second timer. So if you see me flip it over, the first couple of times the players are very, after that, they're like, oh no, we got to go. It brings up the intensity. Remember, when we're pushing our pace along, that's how we do that. Very rarely do we have a problem of things going too fast. Normally in Dungeons & Dragons, it's something taking way too long. So the timer and putting time limits on certain actions, maybe even combat, maybe out of combat, maybe in intense situations or engagements of NPCs, still allow my players to talk to one another, but you've got 10 seconds to tell me. Otherwise, the NPC is going to look at you and say, what are you guys doing? Some food for thought. I love the timer, but done and in the aspect of fun. Don't use it to punish players. Don't use any rules to punish players, but that's a different thing. Think in terms of scenes. This is a wonderful way to move your game forward, is if you turn the scene, right? If you don't have a scene of travel, then skip it. If there's nothing that's going to happen in that scene of merit, skip it. Think of your game kind of like a movie in terms of your own mentality, meaning that every scene should have purpose. Every scene should develop the players or be something that they're enjoying. If the players don't enjoy travel, then maybe we haven't made it enjoyable yet. But maybe the scene needs to be of the travel because of what's happening. The world is coming down. There's calamity everywhere. There's monsters in the wild. And every time we do a travel between two cities, we have to roll for random encounters. And those random encounters can be giant creatures. Now, we can talk about how to deal with characters and creatures that are way outside the DC and how to make things intense without one-shotting or TPKing the party. But the bottom line is, scenes help you move forward, meaning we're engaging with this NPC, then we leave. What's the next scene? Do we go back to the tavern? Do we have to discuss every single time? Do we always reconvene here? What are we going to set up in the terms of the scene in our mind that allows us to kind of bring things together? By moving from scene to scene to scene, we can get rid of a lot of superfluous things between hand. This is just a mental trick that I use. Would you use this trick, or how do you compartmentalize every aspect the players do, or is it just all one long thing? And how do you pace that as a dungeon master? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you on that one. Don't spend as much time transitioning from scene to scene. To go on with the last point where I said think in scenes, transitions in your Dungeons and Dragons games can actually eat up a ton of time. The exposition that we need from Lord of the Rings, from walking from place to place, is not needed in a D&D game. We get a lot of our input and a lot of our ideas from fantasy genre. We're playing a fantasy-based game, whether you're playing Pathfinder or you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or any other fantasy game. One of the things we do is we focus on the descriptions of the transitions. And to be honest with you, in the D&D world, that doesn't matter enough or very much unless there's information that's needed within that transition scene. Such as if you're going from point A to point B, and between there is a crystal field, and that crystal field is important, transition. If there's nothing but a path along the way with trees and, it's a wonderful walk, between the two villages, you don't encounter anything. The path is, nice and level, the trees are beautiful, and you see the occasional wildlife. But overall, the event between point A and point B is not eventful. If there's nothing that's going to help the story between those 2 points, transition quickly. If there's information that's needed, or that's part of a combat encounter, you do random encounters, make sure there's some merit to that encounter. Make sure that encounter brings something to the story that the players wouldn't have already known. It enhances the wildlife, their understanding of the ecology of the local area, which will affect them later on. Or they encounter bandits that are sent specifically to them that they find on their body. Or they let someone live, right? That will come back later on to haunt them. There's lots of, or help them. There's lots of different ways to consider to doing that. So food for thought on that one. Now, these are all great ways to enhance your game when it comes to pacing and engagement, right? We're talking about moving the game forward. And everything has to do with getting rid of the superfluous of the game and having the right things prepared. If we're going to move the game forward, the one thing we need to make sure that we're doing is providing the characters with the right information, right? Making sure that they can make the decisions. We're not hiding things behind stuff, but at the same time, we're moving them from scene to scene. We're not spending tons of time on transition, and we're taking the character's feedback into account. Those are some ways that I like to help move the game forward, but without hindering the storytelling. So as always, guys, thank you very much. I hope you found this, helpful. Comment below. What do you like? What don't you like? What would you do different? What do you do at your table to help with pacing on the game? And then, of course, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that button, share, follow, comment, do all the things to help us grow this channel, and we'll see you next time.